The rain poured endlessly over the city, turning sidewalks into rivers and cardboard shelters into soggy ruins. Among the crowd of umbrellas and rushing feet sat a girl barefoot, wrapped in a thin gray blanket, shivering beside a half-broken umbrella. Her name was Elena. For 3 years she had lived like a shadow, invisible to everyone except stray dogs and passing pity. Once she had dreams: college, art, laughter, but life had stripped them away when her parents died in a fire and death swallowed everything. Now, she survived by sketching portraits of strangers for coins under a flickering street lamp. That night was worse than usual. Her pencils were soaked, her papers ruined. Hunger twisted her stomach as thunder shook the sky. She tried to cover her head when a sleek black car stopped nearby. Out stepped a tall man in a navy coat, polished shoes splashing through puddles. He looked powerful, but his eyes held a strange sadness. He saw her trying to fix her drawings and hesitated. "Do you draw?" he asked. Elena flinched, not used to kindness. "I used to," she whispered. "Now I just try to remember what hope looks like." The man crouched beside her, his coat getting wet. "What's your name?" "Elena. I'm Adrian Carter," he said softly, offering her his hand. She stared at him, suspicious, trembling. "Don't worry. I'm not trying to hurt you. I just saw your drawings." She hesitated, then gave him a ruined sketch, a mother holding a child under the rain. He looked at it for a long time, silent. Something in that image hit him hard. "You're talented," he said finally. "There's a cafe down the street. Come have something warm." "I can't," she murmured. "People stare." "Let them," he replied simply. He held out his umbrella. Against her instincts, Elena followed him. Inside the cafe, warmth hit her face like sunlight. For the first time in months, she felt human again. Adrian ordered her soup and bread. She ate silently, eyes darting around, expecting someone to throw her out. But no one did, because Adrian Carter was no ordinary man. He was the governor's son, soon to announce his campaign for president. Yet sitting with this girl, he forgot all politics. "You shouldn't be out there," he said gently. "There are shelters. They close their doors when you don't have ID," she replied quietly. "I lost mine long ago." He looked down, guilt shadowing his expression. "You remind me of someone I once knew, someone you lost," she asked softly. He nodded. "My mother. She used to paint like you." Silence stretched between them, deep but strangely comforting. When she smiled faintly, he saw how beautiful she was beneath the dirt and rain, eyes like dawn breaking through fog. "You have potential, Elena," he said. "If I gave you a chance, would you take it?" She blinked. "A chance? To rebuild your life? Art school, a roof, food, no strings. Why would you do that for me?" "Because everyone deserves one miracle." She almost cried but held it in. "I don't believe in miracles." "Then maybe," he said with a soft smile, "it's time you start." That night, for the first time in years, Elena slept in a warm guest house Adrian arranged for her. She stared at the ceiling, heart racing, with confusion and hope. Who was this man really? Why had he helped her? She didn't know, but something inside whispered that her life had just changed forever. And far across the city, Adrian stood at his window, looking at the rain. He didn't know why he'd stopped for her. Maybe fate had its own campaign when the heart couldn't vote against. Morning sunlight streamed through the thin curtains, painting golden lines across the small guest house room. For a moment, Elena didn't move. She lay there, unsure if she was still dreaming. The smell of soap, clean sheets, and warm air felt unreal after years of cold nights. When she finally sat up, she saw a neatly folded outfit on the chair, simple jeans, a cream blouse, and a note on top. "Meet me at the City Art Center. I am Adrian." Her heart skipped. She washed, combed her hair, and looked at herself in the mirror. The reflection startled her. Beneath the dirt and fatigue was a young woman she had almost forgotten. Nervous but hopeful, she stepped out into the busy morning. People passed her without glancing, yet this time she didn't feel invisible. At the art center, Adrian waited by the steps, surrounded by reporters snapping photos. He turned as she approached, his expression softening. "You came," he said warmly. "I almost didn't," she admitted. "It's all too much." "Then take it one step at a time," he replied, offering his arm. Inside, The director greeted Adrian respectfully. "Mr. Carter, we weren't expecting you today. I'm here for her," Adrian said, motioning to Elena. "She's an artist. She deserves a chance to show her work." The director hesitated, glancing at her worn shoes and nervous hands. But Adrian's authority left no room for argument. Within minutes, Elena found herself in a studio surrounded by canvases, paints and brushes. She touched them as if they were treasures. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say thank you," Adrian teased lightly. "Or maybe just start painting." He watched as she dipped a brush into blue paint and began to work, slow and uncertain at first. But soon, her strokes grew confident. Within an hour, the blank canvas turned into a vision of dawn breaking over the city, a symbol of rebirth. Adrian stood quietly, mesmerized. "You paint hope," he murmured. "Maybe because I finally found some," she said softly, glancing at him. That day marked the beginning of something neither of them expected. Weeks passed. Adrian checked in often, bringing her food, art supplies, and stories about his campaign. Elena started smiling again, her laughter soft but real. She moved into a small apartment near the center, began attending art classes, and even sold her first painting at a charity event bought anonymously by Adrian himself. Rumors began to swirl. The press whispered about the mystery girl often seen with the rising political star. "You're risking your image," she told him one evening as they walked by the river. "People will talk. Let them," he said. "I'd rather they talk about kindness than power. But you don't even know me, Adrian." He stopped, turning to her. "I know enough. You're strong, brave, honest. That's more than I can say for most people I've met." She blushed, lowering her gaze. "You make me believe I can be someone again." "You already are." His words lingered in the air, soft as the breeze. Days turned into months. Adrian's campaign gained momentum, and so did his feelings for her. He tried to fight them. He was a public figure. She was a girl the world had once forgotten. But the more time they spent together, the harder it became to hide. One evening, during a charity gala, Elena was invited as a guest artist. Dressed in an elegant gown Adrian had gifted her, she looked radiant, unrecognizable from the girl in the rain. Cameras flashed as she entered beside him. Whispers followed, some cruel, some curious, but Adrian didn't care. When reporters asked who she was, he smiled and said, "Someone who reminded me what humanity means." Later that night, as music played softly and laughter filled the hall, Adrian found her standing alone on the balcony, gazing at the stars. "Do you ever wonder why me?" she asked quietly. "Out of everyone, why did you stop for me that night?" He took a deep breath. "Because when I saw you, I saw my mother again. She believed in helping people who couldn't ask for help. You reminded me of her courage. But now," he stepped closer, eyes gentle, "now I stop because of you." Her heart pounded. For the first time, she didn't feel small. She felt seen completely. That night, as they danced beneath the golden lights, the city seemed to pause. The homeless girl who once begged for warmth was now the heartbeat of a man destined to lead a nation. She didn't know where fate would take her, but for the first time, she dared to believe in love and in herself. The morning after the gala, headlines exploded across every newspaper and television screen. "Governor's son seen with mystery woman, who is she?" Photos of Elena in her gown filled the internet, some praising her beauty, others tearing her apart. Reporters camped outside her apartment. Strangers shouted insults, calling her a fraud, a gold digger, a scandal waiting to happen. Inside, Elena sat by the window, tears silently falling. She wasn't ready for this world of flashing cameras and cruel gossip. When Adrian arrived, she ran into his arms, trembling. "They're calling me names," she whispered. "They say I'm ruining your career." He cupped her face gently. "Let them talk. I don't care what they say. But your image, your election, it matters. Not more than you." He kissed her forehead, his voice low. "I won't hide what's true." Despite his reassurance, the world was less forgiving. Opposition leaders seized the opportunity. How can a man who wants to lead a nation make choices based on emotion? One sneered on television. "A homeless girl as a partner? It's irresponsible." Elena watched the news, her heart breaking. "I'm destroying you," she murmured. "You're giving me strength. Adrian replied, refusing to waver. But things only grew worse. Anonymous sources leaked her past, her years on the streets, the shelters, even her old arrest for loitering when she had nowhere to go. Every detail was twisted into shame. One morning she couldn't even step outside without being followed by cameras. Adrian's advisors begged him to cut ties. "Sir, she's a liability," one warned. "You'll lose everything." Adrian's voice turned sharp. "Then I'll lose it with honor." That evening, he visited Elena, finding her packing her few belongings. "I can't stay," she said softly. "This world, it's not mine." "Elena, please, no, listen." She looked at him, eyes red. "You belong to the world. They need you. But me? I'm just a shadow that doesn't fit in the light." "You are my light," he said fiercely. "Do you think I care about their judgment?" She smiled sadly. "You should." Her voice broke. "I don't want to be your weakness." He grabbed her hands, desperate. "Then be my strength." For a moment, neither spoke. Rain began to fall outside, the same rain that had first brought them together. Finally, she pulled free. "Sometimes love means leaving," she whispered. And before he could stop her, she walked away into the storm. Days turned into weeks. Adrian threw himself into his campaign, but his speeches lost their fire. His smile was hollow, his eyes searching every crowd as if hoping she'd appear. Meanwhile, Elena traveled to a small coastal town, painting portraits by the sea. She tried to forget, but every brush stroke whispered his name. One evening, as she finished a painting up to hands reaching through rain, a little girl approached her. "You're the lady from TV," the girl said shyly. "They said you loved a prince." Elena smiled faintly. "He's not a prince. He's just a good man." The child tilted her head. "Then why are you sad?" "Because sometimes good people have to walk different roads." The girl thought for a moment, then handed Elena a small seashell. "My mom says when the sea takes something, it always brings something back." That night, Elena held the shell close, tears shining in the moonlight. Back in the city, the presidential debate loomed. Adrian faced fierce attacks, but when asked about the scandal, he looked straight into the camera. "They say I fell for someone beneath my class," he said. "They're right. But that's because I don't believe in classes. I believe in hearts. She taught me compassion, resilience, and what it means to fight when the world forgets you. If that makes me unfit to lead, then maybe the world needs a different kind of leader." The room fell silent. Millions watched, stunned. Overnight, the tide began to change. People who once mocked Elena started defending her. Hashtags spread. Hashtag hope like Elena and hashtag love beyond status. But she didn't see it. She had no phone, no television, just her art and the sound of waves. Until one day, an old fisherman came running toward her with a newspaper. "Miss, look," he said breathlessly. On the front page was Adrian's face beside her own, with the headline, "The People Stand with Love, Carter leads and pulls." She stared at it, tears streaming down her cheeks. He hadn't forgotten her. He had risked everything. And somewhere deep inside, she knew it was time to stop running. The city was glowing that night, every skyscraper shimmering with banners and lights that read "Hope for All." It had been 3 months since Elena vanished into the coast, and 3 months since Adrian's campaign transformed from politics to a movement. His words, her story, had ignited something deep within the people. The forgotten, the broken, the dreamers, they saw themselves in her. But as election day drew near, he felt a constant ache, a space no victory could fill. He stood backstage before his final rally, his speech trembling in his hands. "Sir," his advisor whispered, "this is it. One more step and you'll be president." Adrian nodded, but his voice was hollow. "And what good is victory?" he murmured, "if the person who taught me why it matters isn't here to see it." Meanwhile, far beyond the noise of the city, Elena packed her small bag. The fisherman's newspaper lay folded on her bed. She traced Adrian's face with her fingers, remembering his words, "You are my light." The sea wind tugged at her hair as she whispered, "Maybe it's time to stop hiding." By dawn, she was on a bus headed back to the city she once called cruel. But this time, she wasn't the same girl who had begged for warmth under a flickering lamp. She carried strength now earned through pain, love, and hope. The city roared with energy when she arrived. Posters of Adrian lined the streets, crowds chanting his name. She followed the sound until she reached a plaza where thousands had gathered beneath a rain of confetti. Adrian stood on stage, the weight of destiny in his eyes. Cameras rolled as he began his final speech. "I once believed leadership was about power," he said. "But then, I met someone who showed me it's about compassion. She came from the streets, yet she taught me dignity. She had nothing, yet she gave me everything." The crowd murmured, eyes searching. "If she's watching tonight," he continued, his voice breaking, "I want her to know. This victory isn't mine, it's hers." And then, from the edge of the crowd, a single voice whispered, "Adrian." He froze. The crowd parted like a wave, and there she was, Elena, standing in a simple white dress, rain falling softly around her. Gasps rippled through the audience. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every tear glistening on her cheeks. Adrian dropped the microphone and stepped down from the stage, his security hesitating but standing aside. When he reached her, he didn't speak. He simply wrapped his arms around her as the world watched. For a long moment, the plaza was silent. No chants, no flashes, just two hearts finding each other again. "You came back," he whispered against her hair. "I heard your heart calling," she replied softly. "You stood for me when no one else did." "How could I not?" He pulled back, eyes wet. "They'll still talk, you know, let them," she said with a smile. "Love doesn't need permission." The crowd erupted into applause, spontaneous, thunderous, unstoppable. Even those who once doubted them felt something shift. That night became known as the Reign of Redemption. By morning, news channels across the nation replayed the moment endlessly. "The homeless girl who taught a nation to love," one headline read. When results came in, Adrian won by a landslide. The people had chosen empathy over pride. As the inauguration day approached, Elena tried to stay out of the spotlight, helping quietly with community projects, restoring shelters, and organizing art programs for underprivileged kids. But the world wouldn't let her fade again. Everywhere she went, people called her name with admiration, not as a scandal, but as a symbol of hope. On the morning of the inauguration, she stood before a mirror in a cream-colored gown, the same nervous tremble in her hands she'd had that first day in the caf. Adrian entered, now wearing the dark suit of a president-elect. He smiled when he saw her. "You look like everything I ever believed in," she laughed softly. "You're going to make the world cry again if you keep talking like that. Let them," he said, echoing her own words. When the ceremony began, the crowd stretched as far as the eye could see. The air buzzed with emotion as Adrian took his oath, his voice strong and clear. When he finished, he turned to the woman beside him. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said to the world, "meet the woman who taught me how to lead, Elena Carter." The applause was deafening. She stepped forward, tears glimmering, and waved shyly. The cameras flashed, capturing the moment that would live forever in history. The homeless girl who once slept in the rain, now standing as First Lady of the nation. But for Elena, it wasn't about the title or the luxury. It was about finally belonging, finally being seen, and finally proving that love, when real, can rise higher than any crown. The White House was quieter than she expected. Despite the guards, the grand halls, and the chandeliers, Elena often found herself pausing at the windows, watching the world outside. "Can you believe it?" Adrian asked one morning, wrapping his arms around her as the city stirred awake below. "Them. 3 years ago, you were sketching portraits under the rain. Now you're here." She smiled softly. "I still draw," she whispered, just with a bigger purpose. True to her word, Elena used her new voice not for glamour but for change. She launched a Second Chance initiative, a national program helping the homeless rebuild their lives, providing education, art therapy, and job training. She visited shelters, shook hands with those still sleeping under bridges, and told them, I was one of you. Don't give up because miracles happen when someone believes you matter. Her sincerity captured hearts everywhere. News anchors called her the people's first lady. Social media flooded with her photos not in diamonds, but in denim and sneakers, painting murals with children or feeding the hungry. Yet fame never changed her. Every night, she returned to the same small art room she'd created inside the mansion, painting memories she couldn't let go of the rain, the street lamp, the night Adrian first knelt beside her. One evening, she found Adrian sitting quietly in the doorway, watching her work. "Do you ever miss the old days?" he asked softly. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Back then, everything was uncertain, but every small kindness felt like a sunrise. And now I just try to be that sunrise for someone else." He smiled, walking over to hold her hand. "You already are." Months turned into years. Together, they rebuilt communities, passed reforms, and transformed the nation's view of compassion. People no longer whispered about the homeless girl who became First Lady. They spoke about the woman who made humanity fashionable again. But not every day was easy. There were critics, power struggles, sleepless nights, but Elena faced them all with quiet strength. Once, during a press conference, a reporter asked her, "Do you ever feel unworthy of your position?" She looked straight into the camera, calm and sure. "Worthiness isn't born from status. It's born from what you do when no one believes in you. I may have come from the streets, but that's what taught me how to walk tall." The room fell silent. Her words spread across the world, quoted in speeches, written on walls, whispered in classrooms. Years later, when Adrian's second term ended, they stepped away from politics and returned to the life they'd once only dreamed of, a small house by the sea, the same coast where Elena had once painted in loneliness. This time, she wasn't alone. "I think the sea kept your promise," Adrian said, watching waves break gently on the shore. "It brought you back to me." She smiled, remembering the little girl's words, and the seashell still kept on her desk. "Maybe the sea was our messenger." They spent quiet mornings sipping coffee, watching gulls sweep across the sky. Elena continued to paint, only now her art hung in galleries around the world, proceeds funding shelters and orphanages. Every canvas told their story without words. Love born in rain, tested by the world, but stronger than any storm. One night, as they watched the sunset together, Adrian took her hand and whispered, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't stopped that night?" She looked at him with a soft laugh. "Then I'd still be drawing under that street lamp and you'd still be looking for hope. You were my hope," he said, voice trembling. "You still are." She leaned against his shoulder, their fingers intertwined as the last light faded. "You gave me a home," she whispered. "No," he replied. "You made the world one." Years later, when historians wrote about President Adrian Carter, they spoke of his reforms, his leadership, his integrity. But when they wrote about his wife, they said something simpler: she taught the nation how to feel again. And in the hearts of millions, Elena remained more than a first lady. She was the girl who rose from rain to roses, proving that love could turn even the coldest night into dawn.